60 million or something like that. You know, you have enough money basically for an entire lifetime. Why go and put your money into SpaceX, which is a huge, you know, risky operation, or Tesla? Why not just kind of, you know, relax?
Sure. So yeah, basically, you know, I graduated from Penn with basically physics and economics, and then we actually did a road trip to Stanford with Robin Wren, who was in my physics class, and now works at Tesla actually.
That's cool.
Yeah, and he grew up in Shanghai.
Yeah.
So
That's cool.
yeah, he's a very smart guy. He ended up continuing at Stanford, and I ended up going on deferment a couple days into the semester. But I was going to be studying material science and the physics of high energy density capacitors for use in electric vehicles. So the intent was, I was going to go, okay, I'm going to work on energy storage solutions for electric vehicles. And I'd worked at a company called Pinnacle Research for a couple summers that did high energy density capacitors. I was going to try to do effectively like a solid state version of what they were doing with it's going to get very complicated from a technical standpoint, but they were using a ruthenium tantalum oxide. Ruthenium is extremely rare and expensive. You cannot scale that. So it's like, can you find a substitute for ruthenium? But we're able to get to energy densities comparable to lead-acid battery, but with incredibly high power density. So,
Well, what do you want?
I can go down a deep rabbit hole there, but
What's the purpose of a supercapacitor in an EV?
Ultracapacitor.
no, I think with the advent of high-energy lithium-ion batteries, a capacitor is not the right path.
What was your thinking back then, though, that made you think it could be useful for EVs?
I want to use advanced chip-making equipment to make capacitors that were precise at a molecular level. So at the, just a level of precision that was sort of unheard of in capacitors. Like capacitors, energy is a function of its area and a separation distance. So if you can have very tiny separation distance, and you can inhibit quantum tunneling. Like I said, how deep things get pretty esoteric. So you're going to inhibit quantum tunneling, get a very short gap, and then you could, in theory, get to very high energy densities by making capacitors in the way that you would make an x86 processor. And since there were tens of millions of dollars going into chip making R&D, that I thought there might be a way to make an advanced capacitor using chip making equipment instead of the conventional means.
So is it off the table, ultracapacitor?
It's unnecessary.
Okay.
Interesting.
It's unnecessary. I think it's probably physically possible, but it's unnecessary at this point.
I mean, I know a lot of people were talking about Maxwell, and they'd been working on some stuff with capacitors.
But the funny thing is that when I was doing my internships at this advanced capacitor company called Pinnacle Research, which was in Los Gatos, we talked a lot about Maxwell. And Maxwell was also trying to make high energy density capacitors. Now Tesla acquired Maxwell.
Mm-hmm.
That's so
Full
cool.
circle. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
We're looking forward to that Investor Day.
Yeah.
It's kind of a big deal.
That's great. Great to know.
Maxwell has a bunch of technologies that where if they're applied in the right way, I think can have a very big impact.
Like the dry electrode stuff?
That would be one of them.
Oh.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
Much bigger deal than it may seem. Yeah.
Well,
And there's a few other things.
with the space that it takes up for the ovens, that for the current technology, you can save all that real estate space now. That's one aspect, and the cost reduction, the weight savings. I mean, there's so many pluses, right?
Yes, I mean there's many things there, but I'll have to wait until whatever battery day.
Sure.
Which is hopefully in a few months. But I think we've got some pretty exciting things to share. So.
Gally's very excited.
Yeah. It seems like the pace of the innovation of the battery thing has just taken off. Like since you guys have more capital and being able to like have the Gigafactory be vertically integrated. Just seems like no other car company is making that many batteries, so they're not even thinking about what comes next. But that
They're not
huge
even,
you know,
man.
Not even come close at all.
Taycan 201 miles.
Not even.
That's a joke.
Yeah, no, it's true. The other car companies just really want to outsource battery technology. Not even making this battery module and cell, but they're obviously outsourcing the cells, but even outsourcing the modules and the packs.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like they're really not thinking about fundamental chemistry improvements, and there's some pretty deep wizardry at Tesla on this front. I should say a bit about like electric vehicles or sustainable energy in general. You know, I said it was pretty, I think, obvious to not just to me, but to a lot of people, even go back 30 years or longer, that we must have a sustainable energy solution. In fact, it's tautological. If it's not sustainable, we must at some point find an alternative to it. Mm-hmm. And so, even if there were no environmental impact to the sort of fossil fuel economy, then we would run out of them, and then we'd have economic collapse, and civilization would fall apart. Yeah. So that was actually my initial motivation for electric vehicles. It's like, okay, we've got to have a solution that does not require mining hydrocarbons. That is sustainable in the long term. It was not actually initially from an environmental standpoint, because I had not realized the gravity of the environmental situation at that time. And I thought, actually, for sure, by now we'd have electric cars. Like,
For sure.
But
Are we back on the moon?
yeah, totally. Why are we not back on the moon?
Exactly.
It's insane.
It is insane.
If you said told somebody in '69 that we'd not be back on the moon, and in like 2020, they'd be like, you might have gotten punched, honestly, because they'd be like, you're just, it's like so insultingly rude to the future of humanity. Because they'd be like, what is wrong with you?
It's encouraging. SpaceX is encouraging, though.
Yeah. So it's like we should have a base on the moon. We should have sent people to Mars. None of that's occurred. You know, we've got to make that happen. Yeah, so but on the sustainability front, it was really, like I said, initially not so much from an environmental standpoint, but from a necessity of replacing a finite resource in order to ensure that civilization could continue to grow. And then the urgency of it became much more obvious, like, wow, we really better do something, because the environmental stuff is becoming quite serious. And the inertia of large existing companies is just hard to appreciate. They just want to keep doing the same thing, and maybe 5% different every year, maybe 5% different. Big companies hate change. So then at the time that Tesla, was created, there was no one was doing electric cars. No, there weren't really startups. The big car companies weren't doing it. GM and Toyota canceled their EV programs.
Now everybody's doing it right now. Like,
and their mom.
Everybody's talking about it.
Everyone and their mom is doing it.
Yeah. And we would all like to congratulate about the Gigafactory 3.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Epic.
amazing. And I would like to know, like, why China is the best country to build the first foreign Gigafactory.
China is the biggest consumer of cars in the world, so it's the biggest. So that alone would be enough to do it. I think also there was a lot of uncertainty about tariffs, and it's like we potentially would be unable to sell effectively in China if we did not have a factory locally.
Yes.
Or at least unable to sell at prices that weren't extremely high. Those are really the two main reasons. I think but I think there's also a third important reason that there's just so much talent and drive in China that I think it's a good place to do a lot of things.
Yes.
And the evidence is there in the incredible progress in the factory, which was built with very, very high quality in a very short period of time. The cars coming out of Shanghai are already very high quality.
I can tell, and
Yeah.
the run rate is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that they use the Chinese badge as well. It's like a symbol of pride and
Sure.
made in China. So
Yeah, it's cool. It's super cool.
How did Tesla manage to get the first wholly owned foreign car company in China?
Yeah.
I mean, a factory.
Well, I've went to China many times, and they kept saying that we would have to do this, majority local owned venture, and I said that and we had to partner with someone. I said, we're a little late to the dance here, so who would we partner with? There's nobody left, and also we're just a little company, so we're the because they should get married. And we're a bit young.
That's a good example.
We're young, and then and then also as pointing out, there's certainly Chinese companies that are going to, they're establishing factories in the U.S. I mean, there's like Faraday Future and that kind of thing, and that's 100% owned by them. And so, to be fair, it should be allowed that an American car company should be able to own its factory in China as well. And so we, talked to them for over a number of years, and they eventually said, okay, well, we'll change the law. So they changed the law. But now other companies can do it as well. So it's not just limited to Tesla.
And how much of that production hell, learnings, have really enabled? Because I don't want to bring up CapEx, but one of my favorite things is the stats in the shareholder letter. It's so much cheaper, not only faster, but it seems like you guys have learned so much from the Fremont factory, and that really enabled kind of a turbocharged build for Shanghai.
Yeah, I think the big difference is we are way less dumb than we were. So the foolishness of capital expenditures was very high, and it's less high now. And then with the Shanghai factory, we designed out all of or as much of the foolishness as we could think of that exists at Fremont and in Nevada. So we just made a lot of decisions that weren't smart, and we designed those out such the production line is much simpler. So it's much simpler and better implemented. And then we also found that in most cases the suppliers were more efficient in China as well than in the U.S. So but we've also managed to get a lot more output from existing equipment in the US as well. So the Model 3 body line in Fremont, for example, was only ever meant to do 5,000 cars, Model 3s a week, and it's doing 7,000.
Wow.
Nice.
So,
Wow, nice.
And with turning off a bunch of unnecessary things that were being done. So there was a lot of foolish things that we were doing. So, and we changed some of the designs and made it easier to. It's like hundreds of little things to make it easier to build, and so being able to get 40% more output off the same line obviously makes a big difference, and while reducing the cost, the marginal cost of production. And I think improving the quality of the car. So it's all good stuff. It was the result of a ton of hard work by a lot of people. So yeah, but it was kind of necessary in that we didn't really have a place to put a second Model 3 body line. So it's like we either make this one go faster or we will not be able to achieve production. But the Model 3 body line in Shanghai is much simpler than the one in, and I say that in a good way, because it has the same end result. So if but it's a much easier to understand. There's just getting rid of unnecessary movement. There's a lot of unnecessary movement in the Fremont body line, but not in Shanghai.
So you guys said in the production letter that you just started battery production in Shanghai too, and I heard that you guys were getting cells from cattle and LG Chem. Are the cells basically kind of like a commodity part that you can assemble into your battery packs there, or does it make a difference? How do you see that long term?
I believe these cells are not yet from LG. We do expect to use locally produced cells, but I don't. Just to be clear, I don't always know exactly what's going on everywhere at the 50,000 person company. So some of the things, like most of the things I say will be correct, but maybe occasionally something that's not. As to the best of my knowledge, we're not yet using LG Chem cells. We're using Panasonic cells made in Nevada.
But LG Chem can make pretty much the same cells as Panasonic?
Yes, but pretty much is not the same as same. So there's still a few bugs to work out with the LG Chem cells before we can use them in our module and battery pack production system. The CATL cells, the CATL situation will be more of an integrated module than it will be a cell, and that's so that it's not just it's not super easy to replace these things. But yeah, we do expect to use CATL. We do expect to use LG. Currently, we're using Panasonic. When I say expect to use, I mean like literally a matter of months. So by the middle of this year, we probably be using both LG and CATL in volume.
Wow.
So we were talking about a lot of Tesla stuff, but we kind of wanted to ask you about your personal history, because you were saying how there's some misconceptions you would like to make straight. And Ashley Vance wrote a book about you. I just read May's lovely book, and it was really wonderful. I loved it and learned a little bit more history about your family and you. But what are some of the misconceptions that you would like to correct?
Most of this is just ended up being kind of water under the bridge that people didn't notice that much. I mean, there's this sort of some stories in there where it sounds like I fired people all of a sudden and arbitrarily, which was not the case. It just Ashley asked somebody who didn't know what was going on, and then that person was suddenly not there, and they didn't know why.
Yeah.
But I definitely do not fire talented people, unless there's no option. So
yeah.
And so not without warning or.
Well, I keep hearing you say "we." Like, it sounds like you're always thinking of everybody. I see you as a very selfless person in your endeavors.
Thanks.
Yeah. I mean, seriously. I mean, yeah. It's like from the age of 12, it sounds like you've been thinking about how to help humanity.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to be sort of like some, the sort of savior or something like that, but it's really just that if it just seems like I don't know, seems like the obvious thing to do. I can't, like, I'm not sure why you do anything else. We want to maximize happiness of the population and propagate into the future as far as possible and understand the nature of reality. And from that, I think everything else follows.
I saw you on Twitter, talking about how, people are having this rumor that you've been wealthy your whole life, and that would be the only reason you became successful. And you've debunked that. And can you share more about your upbringing and what led you to going to North America when you?
Sure. I was in South Africa, and it seemed like wherever there was. A lot of the advanced technology in the world was being produced in America, and Silicon Valley especially. So I wanted to be where I could sort of have an impact on technology. So that's or be involved in the creation of new technology. So that's what prompted me to go to at first Canada, because I could get citizenship in Canada through my mom, and then ultimately to the U.S. But yeah, I just left South Africa when I was 17 and landed in Montreal. I had about 2,000 $400 Canadian. Yeah, and I started staying in a youth hostel for a few days, and then there was this. You could buy a ticket to go across the country for $100 and stop along the way, and so I bought that and just took a Greyhound across Canada and saw all these like little towns. Well, we were getting. I didn't have much. I had like a backpack and a suitcase of books. But the bus company Greyhound, they unloaded it in one of the cities, and then the bus left without my stuff.
Oh, that's nice.
So I literally had nothing.
All your books.
But your clothes too?
Actually, weirdly, I think I might have had the books thing, but not my clothes.
That was priorities.
All you needed.
Yeah, because I was just sitting in the bus station reading, waiting for the bus to get ready. Yeah. And I think I had the books, but no clothing.
Oh no!
So, anyway, but I managed to get to Swift Current, Saskatchewan, and then it's your cousin's son, yeah, has a wheat farm there, and I worked on the wheat farm for about 6 weeks.
Wow.
So I turned 18 in Saskatchewan. It's in this town called Swift Current.
So that was summertime, right? It was June.
Yeah, June 20.